Okay, so welcome back. This is Chapter 3, Display and Summarizing Quantitative Data. We have already done making histograms, stem and leaf, and dot plots. What this video is going to focus on is it's going to focus on the 5-number summary and then creating a box plot. And we're going to show you how to do all of this by hand. I kind of just drew the arrow there for my reference. You don't really need to draw that. Okay, so before I do the steps, right here, there's 3 steps on how to calculate. Let's first of all know what a 5-number summary is. You should have read it or maybe read it. The 5-number summary is the minimum, quartile 1, the median, quartile 3, and then the max. Finding the 5-number summary is needed in order to find a box plot. And so these things go in order. The minimum, and then quartile 1, then median, then quartile 3, then max. Okay, so to do this by hand, the first thing you must do is you must put numbers in order. Okay, and so let's do that first. So here my smallest number is 5, so I'm going to put 5. I kind of cross it off, and then 6, and then 7, and I just cross them off as I see them. But you want to make sure you get them in order. If you miss anything, it's going to be an issue. Now, this one, for some reason, I don't have numbers repeating. I usually do. If I had another 9, I would just write another 9. However many 9s you write, you see. Okay? So if you have duplicate numbers, write them again. Okay, so now the next smallest number is 12, then 13, then 14, 15, and then 21, and then 32. Okay, then I like to count again just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we got 11 numbers. That's what we need. I can't stress how important it is for you to do those little steps, especially when we start putting stuff in the calculator, because if you leave off one number, everything's wrong. Everything is probably going to be off. Okay, so now the next thing you do is you find the middle, which is the median. Now, if we were on the board, I would start and I would just count in one at a time. I'm going to try a process because I have to do this online, which is kind of tricky. I'm going to highlight one at a time and kind of cross them off, and then I'll go erase those highlights. So one on the left, one on the right, left, right. And so now I have 5 there, 5 there, so that means this is my median. Okay? And actually the highlights aren't going to throw us off, but yeah, so I'm going to keep them there. Okay? Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to find the median that's on the left and the median that's on the right. Right here, quarter 1 is the median on the left. Quarter 3 is the median that's on the right side. Okay? So find median on left. Oh, my phone's ringing. So you find the median on the left, which is quarter 1, and you find the median on the right, which is quarter 3. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. You can start counting at the 12, or you count at the 9. At the 9. It really doesn't matter. Like for small data, it may change some things a little bit, but in the end, your description and everything's going to be okay. We're not going to do many by hand. We'll do most of them on the calculator, but I still want to make sure you know how to do this. And so I'm going to count the 12. And so now I'm going to use a different color highlighter. Well, that might get too confusing. I don't know. Teaching this through video is challenging. Okay, so I'm going to use green. So I'm going to start at the 12. Let's go. So 12, then 5, 9, then 6, and then you notice it's right here. That is my quarter 1. okay? If I would have started at 9, my quarter 1 would have been 7. But I'm going to include the 12, okay? And you could do that. Now let's do this other one. I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use on the right. So again, if I include the 12 on the left, I have to include it on the right. So I'm going to do 12 with 32, 13 with 21. And again, I have 2 numbers left. And so right here is quarter 3. All right, so what I have is I have my min is 5. My quarter 1, it's right in between those two, which is 7.5. And so if it's right in between, you add them up and divide by 2. You're finding the average or the mean of them. And then median is 12. Quarter 3, again, I add up 14 and 15, and I divide by 2, so 14.5. And then my max is 32. Okay. If you would have not counted the 12, your quarter 1 and quarter 3 would have been off a little bit. It would have been a little different, but it's okay. So as long as I can see which process you used, I'm happy with it. All right, so now, in order to create a box plot, we have to use the 5 number summary. Okay. Okay, so the box plot by hand, there's 5 steps, and you might have to watch this a couple times to make sure you understand, but I suggest watch it, draw, do that step, watch it, do that step. So you're going to want to pause your video. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to find 5 number summary, which we did. We did that right above, so we have that step done. And a lot of times that's the one that takes the most process. The second thing is I'm going to draw my axis and the box. Okay, so my axis has to go from 5 to 32. I always want to keep some space in between, so I think I'm going to have mine. Let's get a shape. Let's do a line. I think I'm going to have mine go from 5 to 40, or from 0 to 40. I always go a little bit past, and it makes it so that I just have some space. So let's see. So 0, stuff's on my thing to 40. Now, you do not have to show each tick mark. I'm going to put 20 in the middle, and then I'm going to put 10, 30, and then I'm going to put little ones for 5, but I'm not going to label them. Okay? But you have to have a consistent axis, and that might be the easiest way to do it. I always start at the min, the max, our numbers above and below, and then find a middle one, and then split it up again. Okay, so draw the box. Okay, so your box is made up of quarter 1. The left side of the box is quarter 1. The line in the middle of the box is the median. And the right side of the box is quarter 3. Okay, so my quarter 1 is 7.5, so it's right about here. My quarter 3 is 14.5, so it's almost to the 15, not exactly. So I draw the box, and now I'm going to put my line at the median, which is 12, which is right about there. Okay, you don't have to label those. I will know this end is quarter 1, and I'll look to see, yep, that's in about the right spot. This is the median, that looks good. This one's good. If you would have went past the 15, I would mark off, because it's supposed to be at 14.5. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to find the IQR. And the IQR is the interquartile range. It's the distance between the left side of the box and the right side of the box. And so to find the IQR, you're going to do quarter 3 minus quarter 1. And so a lot of times when I list a 5 number summary, I'm going to include the IQR here because I know that I'm going to need it. It's not part of the 5 number summary, but to do our box plot, we're going to need it. Okay, so 5 number summary, our IQR is 7. Okay, so step 4. Step 4 is I need to figure out where my whiskers are going to go. Or actually not my whiskers, I need to find fences. So a fence on a box plot anything that goes outside of the fences tells us that it's an outlier, okay? And when we look at histograms, sometimes it's hard on histograms to know whether or not something is an outlier, but I can find out for sure on box plots because anything outside of a fence is an outlier. Okay, so the way we calculate fences is the left fence is quarter 1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. And the right fence is quarter 3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. The textbook kind of explains why is it 1.5. Well, it's 1.5 because 1 was too small and 2 was too big. And that's literally how statisticians figured out. Let's use 1.5. Okay, so now over here, I'm going to do this part in red. So for this one, my left fence is going to be, what was it? The number, let's see, I got to remember what this number was. 7.5 minus 1.5 times my IQR of 7. And then my right fence is going to be quarter 3, 14.5 plus 1.5 times 7. Okay, so let's take out our handy dandy calculators and figure out what those are. Okay, so when you did this, you would have found your left fence was at -3. So I'm going to draw a dotted line to show my left fence is at -3. And my right fence is at 25. That's what a fence is. Okay, if we have any numbers that go outside of our fence, then that means it's an outlier. On the left, my minimum is 5. So I'm good. So I can just draw, I don't have an outlier on the left. On the right, though, I do have an outlier. 32 is going to be an outlier, okay? And so that's going to be an issue. So we know we're going to have an outlier. Okay, so let's go figure out what we're going to do for the next step. For step 5, we're going to draw our whiskers. And so there's two things about it, and I wish I had more space here. Oh, well, we'll figure it out. Outside a fence equals outlier. And when you have an outlier, you're going to put a star, a box, or a tick, or a little dot. That shows it's an outlier. And here's the next thing that's really important. If you have an outlier, you do not draw up to the whisker. You draw up to the next biggest point. So stop at point before fence. If there's an outlier. Okay? So the left doesn't have an outlier. Our minimum went to 5. So I'm going to draw a line here and I'm going to connect. That one's not a big deal. The one that's an issue is over here. 32 is an outlier. So I'm going to put a dot where 32 is. That shows it's an outlier. And again, you could have put a star or you could have put a box. Sometimes they save these stars for extreme outliers, which are 3 IQRs away. Okay, so if you have a really extreme outlier, you would put a star. But you don't have to. But if you're looking at box plots and you see that, that's what that means. That's what that signifies. When I'm grading how you're doing it, if you don't have the star, you're not going to get marked off. Okay, and so now this is the important part. I have to stop at the point before the fence. So besides 32, my next biggest number is 21. The most common thing people are going to do is they're going to try and draw their whisker all the way to the fence. But that's not right. You can't do that, okay? You're going to draw to the next biggest number, which is 21. And then you connect it. Okay? The common mistakes I see on box plots is that people will not make their axis the same. They will actually just put the number 5 and then the number 7.5 and then the number 12. They identify the tick marks by your 5-number summary. That is not right. You have to make an axis and then put the tick marks about where they are. The other mistake I see is that when there's an outlier, People draw this line to the fence. Don't do that. You only draw the line to the next biggest number. Okay. After you've done this, you may want to watch this video again just to make sure you understand the process, because it is tricky. We will spend some time practicing it in class and going over questions, but hopefully you have a 70 or 80% understanding before coming to class on it. If you don't, you should talk to some people in your study group so that way maybe you understand it a little better.